welcome to a new season of This Racing Life. We've plenty coming up for you this week in a packed show. We'll be off to Tweenhills Stud to find out about what's been a busy season for them so far. We're off to Kingsclear to meet a man in Andrew Balding bidding to become champion trainer for the very first time. But we start with an Olympic champion and Laura Collett, who returned from Tokyo 2020 with her horse London 52 and with an eventing Team Gold. Right, we're here with Laura and London 52, who is the boss of his pal Laura Jr., who's over there. It's great to see him in the field at yours, just relaxing. Has this been him since Tokyo?
Yeah, he had a couple of weeks still in the stable, and then got the all clear from the vet that he was happy for him to have his holiday. So yeah, so he's been out here probably a week now, full time, and just enjoying his downtime. How
much downtime does he get?
He'll probably get about 8 weeks. Slightly depend on the weather and how he's if he's still happy out, he can stay out a bit longer, but between 8 and 10 weeks really, proper holiday, and then start back up ready for next year.
Yeah, he's very interested in our equipment, which is great because he's an inquisitive guy. How do you feel about him and reflect on what you and he, obviously the team as well, but in particular you and he achieved together? Will he now just forever be the most special guy?
Yeah, he's done so much for my career. You know, my first 5-star win and then my first Olympic Games on him. So I owe him an awful lot, and he's always from day one been a very special horse, and we've had ups and downs and it's been a roller coaster, but he's always shown talent, and now he's just he's a phenomenal horse, and very lucky to ride a horse like him, and the places that we've been to and the times that we've had, he's super special.
The 5-star win was in Po, so that was the only one because of COVID, the only event, wasn't it, that was a 5-star event that year?
Yeah.
And was that the one, was he always Olympic Games bound before that? Was that the one that set you and him on that path?
Yeah, to be honest, he, when it was meant to be Tokyo 2020, I always said it was a year too soon for him. He was too inexperienced, and then when it got moved back a year, I thought, well, if it could be a possibility and a dream, and he went to Po. It was always the plan if things went well that he'd go to Po, and I guess after he won Po was when it sort of thought, well, it could be, it's a realistic goal, and he came out this year and was just, he's been amazing. Every event he's done, he's been phenomenal, and it was a tough year to be selected, but luckily he was on good form.
What specific training or planning did you have to take into account for a place like Tokyo? Was it going to be a very different experience to say competing in the UK?
Yeah, very different. The team were great with telling us what we needed to do, and acclimatising us as riders and the horses. So he would have done in the last 3 or 4 weeks leading up to it. He did all his fitness work with a fleece rug on from up by his ears over the whole of his body, just
what, so humidity-wise or temperature-wise?
Just temperature, just so that they learnt to keep going when they were overheating, basically, and sort of not feel sorry for themselves. And it was amazing. The difference just doing it a few times. You could really feel the difference in him. The first few times he definitely going up the gallops was like, God, do I have to keep going? And then he got used to it and out there.
And if you hadn't have done that, it definitely would have been different, you think?
I think so, yeah. I think there were a lot of horses out there that really struggled with the heat, and I think if you watch the British horses go cross country, they all coped really well, and I think we'd had a lot of help, and they had the test event a couple of years ago, and the team took a lot back from that with how hot it was going to be, and the best way to do your warm up. That everything had to be slightly different to normal. You had to take into account that you needed to wash them down in the warm up, which you wouldn't normally do, and stand them in the tents with the fans and things like that. So there was a lot of aspects to it that were different to being at home.
When you went into the show jumping, is it fair to say that you knew? Or is that a step too far? Because I feel like we did at home. We were like, well, this is it. It's going to happen.
With horses, you never know. Anything can happen. They could trip and stumble. You're never sure. And for us, I think as all three of us would have said, we went in there just with a job to do, and it's not over till the fat lady sings, as they say. And even once Oliver had finished his jumping round, it was almost hard to believe that it had actually happened, and it sort of still hasn't really fully sunk in.
That's still it's really nice to see. That's still like a proper genuine. Every time you think about it, right, you must just go. Do you still wake up in the morning and go, oh yeah, it happened?
Well, you question whether it did happen. It's a bit strange, because we straight away we come back to normal. Same routine as it was before, and you think, did the last month really happen? But yeah, it's an amazing dream come true, and the whole experience was incredible.
Well, we come to sit down with Laura, not that the horses were being naughty or anything.
It's not being very helpful.
First of all though, was it always eventing for you? Were you always going to be an eventer?
I started in showing and then wanted to do something a bit more exciting, and I was either going to go show jumping or eventing. Got bitten by the bug of eventing, and that was that really. So yeah, from about the age of 13 it was always eventing.
You were pretty successful early on, right?
Yeah, I was very lucky. I had an amazing pony that started me off. He went to the Europeans in 2005 and then was part of the team juniors and young riders the following few years, and had some very good horses from an early age.
I suppose the next sort of big career moment, if you like, or certainly in when I was reading about you, was the injury that you sustained. This was a rotational fall, where the horse flipped over on top of you.
Yeah.
And that was, and were family members watching at the time?
No. So that was probably the hardest call that my mum had to get. She was at home, and I was just at the event with my groom Felicity, and she had to drive the horses back. I think I had 4 or 5 horses there that day. So for her, driving home without riders and not, there was no real news straight away as to how I was. I think I was resuscitated 5 times on the way to the hospital, so it was pretty serious and it was touch and go. But luckily, by the time I was aware of anything, they'd got everything under control, and it was all, in my eyes, it was all fine.
The next thing I was going to ask you was there any doubt whether you'd get back on and carry on? But I suppose, like you say, if you don't remember it happening, then you're perhaps that the event in your mind isn't, you don't have the fear factor from it.
Yeah, in my mind there was never a doubt, and in a lot of other people's minds there was a doubt whether I'd get back on, and whether I'd compete again. But no, in my head it wasn't. And the first day I came out of hospital, I got back on a horse, and granted it was only walking around because I had quite a few broken bones and couldn't really do anything else, but it was part of the recovery and proving people wrong. I was very lucky. I went to Oaksley House. I was allowed to leave hospital. I think I was there 3 or 4 days after I'd woken up, and then got released to go to Oaksley, and they were amazing. Being around people that work day in, day out with injured jockeys, and everyone has the same mindset, whereas I think if you're in hospital, it's a very negative place, and the doctors like to tell you that it's going to take you, 6 months to recover, whereas you go to Oaksley and they say, right, we can get you back in, 6 weeks rather than 6 months, and they make sure they do, and they just know how hard they can push you, and it was hard work, and but the end goal was the same for everybody, and I think they see it as a challenge as much as we do. So yeah, it was the best place to be. Do you
think you're stronger now, having gone through that experience?
Yeah, definitely. I think it being at Oaksley, I wouldn't have really done a huge amount of sort of strength and conditioning or gym work like before. I would have been fully focused on the horses, and I wouldn't have thought about myself at all. But going there and feeling how strong I was, having done all of that work because I had to get back, because I couldn't do so much riding at the time because of all the injuries, and then how I felt on the horse after all of that made me realise that there is another part that you need to focus on as well as the horses. And so yeah, I think it's definitely opened my eyes to a lot of different things and focuses as well, really.
So we saw you jumping this morning, and I was very interested in how you built it up. First of all, I mean, obviously, you weren't going to start where you finished up, but also there are those poles that you use, sort of pointing in towards a jump. I mean, is this all about technique for the horse?
Yeah, the V poles, we use that a lot to get them to make a better shape and to be sharper with their front end. Like with the racehorses, some of them we'd use the V poles to help them as well. But yeah, the grid work we did this morning was about, part of it is gymnastic. It's very good for their bodies to be doing the bounces and have to really work down the grid, and then obviously the V poles help the shape and the technique of the horse over the fence.
It must be relentless for you at the moment, having obviously you're back from Tokyo, you've just won a gold, you've got more competitions on the horizon, and you're working with horses from different equestrian events. I mean, is there ever a break on the horizon, or not really?
Not really. No, like I love it. I love being busy, and I like being involved with different, the different aspects. I've just started doing a bit for Ollie Murphy. Going down to he's built a school there and got some jumps, so I'm going to help him with his racehorses, and I love doing it. And normally the winter would have been quieter for me with the event horses out, but now I feel that time doing the racehorses, so yeah, I'm sure we'll find a week here or there to have a break.
And we'll hear more from Laura later on in the series as she talks about her love of horse racing and her time working with a Cheltenham Festival winner.
From here we're off to Kingsclear and to trainer Andrew Balding, who's enjoying a fantastic season and just might end it as champion trainer. He's been talking to Jess Stafford.
Your numbers have been so consistent month on month. What is it about this group of horses in particular that has made them so consistent?
I don't know about making them consistent, but we've obviously been blessed with some pretty good horses and a depth of talented horses. And I think the main consistency's come down to the fact that they've been healthy all year, which we didn't have that usual sort of bout of coughing in the spring for whatever reason that we tend to get, which meant that the 2-year-olds were far more forward than we'd usually be, and the older horses have been healthy, really from all-weather championships day, where we had a couple of winners, and you sort of start and the momentum built from there. And when you've got healthy horses and talented horses, it gives you a much better chance of keeping that consistency going.
They're clearly very versatile as well, a range of horses from sprinters to stayers as well, which gives you a lot of options when you're aiming for those major festivals, which you've done really successfully this season.
Yeah, I think variety is what we've always tried to achieve, is to have each area not specialised particularly in one area. I mean, the one that's, I think, in the last couple of years that we've improved with is the 2-year-olds, and they've been very strong this year. And a couple of 2-year-old Royal Ascot winners would have been unheard of 5 years ago, really. But no, I think everyone connected with the team enjoys the variety, and I'd hate to think we were pigeonholed into one type of horse. So we've tried to spread ourselves across the board, really.
Alcohol Free has been the star she has been. She's taken you to all the big dances this whole season, but that must have been one of the highlights for you this season, her win in the Sussex Stakes.
Oh, very much so. I mean, that was we always had an aim for at the beginning, after she'd won the Cheveley Park last year, was the Guineas and the Guineas, the Coronation and the Sussex Stakes were our 3 sort of primary objectives. And she's had a couple of, she won the Fred Darling, and she ran in the Falmouth, was 3rd in the Falmouth, and York was a bit of an afterthought. But those were always the 3 primary objectives, and she's won 2 of them, which is fantastic, and wonderful for Jeff and the team, David and the team at Littleton, and for everybody here who've been looking after Jeff's horses for a long, long time. And I've been so lucky with those. The owners I inherited from my father, with obviously Jeff, George Strawbridge and the Queen and the Waiteses and the Hitchenses and many others who're still with us, which is and it's always very satisfying, particularly to win something at that level for them is very rewarding.
Touching on the team as well, because we've been privileged to be here this morning and see the kind of military operation you've installed. It works like clockwork, and you do have such a massive support base. What you've got now and the way it works is probably years and years of development. Is that be right to say as well?
Very much so. I think everything, the fact this hasn't happened overnight, that's for sure. This has been, how long? Been training 18 years, and each year we've tried to Annalise has been instrumental in it, as have my parents, in trying to develop a system that suits here and will work and be sort of as efficient as we possibly can. And I think we've got I've got an amazing support team, and that really, the results are very much due to that, the fact that I just get out of bed in the morning and just have to worry about horses. Everything else is pretty much taken care of.
And we've obviously had a great year for your jockeys as well on board. Oshin, he knows what it was like to win a championship, which you're pushing to try and achieve as well. And then Dave, who's just had a spectacular season, which probably is really well deserved considering he's been grafting year after year. But what has it been about this year that's put him in the headlines?
Well, I think for Dave, it's confidence. He's always had huge ability and possibly just lacked a bit of confidence, and he's been a bit unlucky. Things, the odd decision or the odd race that might have gone differently might have helped this happen 5 years ago, but it's happening now. And I think the other thing is when you suddenly, people telling you how well you're doing and how well you're riding.
Yeah.
For someone like David to, from a confidence point of view, it's done huge things for him. And wonderful horseman, great hands, and very strong in a finish. And it was just that the missing element perhaps was his self-belief that he was every bit as good as everyone else. And that's fantastic. Oisin, on the other hand, has always had the confidence, but he can walk the walk as well as talk the talk. And he's just so solid and reliable. And that's a big part of the success this year, is having both your main guys riding as well as they have been. And that's when you're talking about the sort of consistency through the season, I think that's as relevant as anything. When you're getting the help from the guys on board and they're at the top of their game, that's a big advantage.
I know the press, the media have been lifting the story of you getting your first trainer's title, but probably not lost on you that it's 50 years on from when your dad won it as well. What's the momentum like within the yard to go and do it and get the job done?
It's a difficult one because obviously, we'd all love to be champion trainer, but and the whole team would love it to happen. But I want to sort of manage the expectations to the point that, there's with 400,000 ahead at the moment, but that could change in one day on Champions Day in one race. And, I don't want everyone to get too excited about it because it would be an amazing thing to do. And don't get me wrong, we would love to do it. But at the same time, it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is we just try and achieve the best results we can with the current crop of horses we got to the end of the year, and if that's good enough, that's good enough. But it's of course, don't get me wrong, it'd be lovely to achieve, but I don't want people sort of getting really disappointed if we don't pull it off.
Andrew Balding's last classic winner came courtesy of Cameco, who's now standing at Tweenhills Stud. Tom Stanley caught up with stud manager David Redbers as they fed the yearlings in the field.
Get up. Steady.
Colts seem a bit livelier.
It's amazing. They spend most of their energy growing.
Yeah.
And we're obviously feeding them a great deal at the moment as well. They're on probably 3 heap scoops a day of hard food. And this is lovely river meadows, so the grass here never stops growing.
Do you feed these more than the fillies?
Slightly. But they get to a stage where they suddenly stop growing and they go out, and then they become full of energy and start playing rugby the whole time. So at that point we bring them in. This is the dog's job, is stopping them ripping all the bags of food apart.
The first thing that strikes me is there's a lot of grey, which tells me one thing.
There's a lot of grey and a bit of pink.
Yeah.
We've got lots of roaring lions in here. So this lot have not been touched yet. They are just being fed twice a day, only been touched by the farrier really. and they will all come in about a month's time and start the breaking process. So they're still very much raw.
Yeah.
They haven't been through a sale, they've not been prepped, and you're seeing them in the sort of natural element, if you like.
Yeah, which as they were running all amongst us was genuinely hugely exciting.
Well, it was actually probably more scary for me because I was wondering what your insurance status was. Anyway, everyone survived.
Exactly. Out of interest, the breaking process happens locally, happens nearby?
Yeah, so we've got a guy called Tim Rusbridge, who's better half actually is the racing office manager for Qatar Racing here at Bryony, and he's a top class eventer and has been doing our breaking now for 4 or 5 years, and he's just very close by. So he's already had the first draft. So what we did is the really mature 2-year-old types we broke in early, including those 3 that are going to Wesley Ward, the Zoo Stars, and
while we're on that, go on. So touch on those 2 fillies and a colt going to Wesley Ward, and we've seen the 2 fillies already.
We've seen the 2 fillies. The colt's on the other farm. 2 fillies. One out of Lightning Quick, who's Frankel, daughter of Lightning Pearl, who won the Cheveley Park for us, and another filly out of the Flames, who was 3rd in the Queen Mary. And basically Wesley came. I think he had lunch with Sheikh Fahd the day before. They decided on this great plan to come and look at all the Zoo Stars. And he came, and without looking at any paper at all, he picked out the 3 that he liked most. And I have to say, he's picked 3 absolute bullets. So he better come back with a Royal Ascot winner.
So given what he does, they may well have been the 3 that you'd have recommended and said, given you know what he's looking for, that from what they had on their page, you'd have said they'll suit you, Wesley.
Yeah, and he was extraordinary. He didn't want to see any paper at all. He had no interest in seeing the pedigree. He just picked out the physicals, and the physicals, I'm glad to say, matched exactly what you would hope.
I take it that's exciting for you to know that you're going to have 3 horses that are going to head out there and then hopefully come back for Royal Ascot.
That's very much Sheikh Fahd's plan. You know, he thought it was a great wheeze. Anyway, it was good fun. The whole process of Wesley coming here and picking them was good fun, and we had a great lunch and heard lots of stories.
So who have we got here? Who should we?
Well,
where should we start?
We can start with this chap.
There we
Did
go.
you spot anything wrong with that one?
What should I spot wrong?
Keep looking. This would be a great test of your observation powers.
Well, he looks to be moving okay. Bit.
I wonder if
tubby.
your audience can see he's only got one eye.
Oh, has it? Oh, Christ! Look at his head. He really does only have one eye.
That's it's really sad.
What happened?
That's a roaring lion out of a Dubawi mare called Dubara, and when he was about a week old, the mare lashed out and kicked him.
Jeez.
And he lost his eye. And the great thing is he has no idea. Because it happened so early in his life.
Doesn't know any different.
He's as tough as any of the others. He fights for his food. This is a cracker. Look at this one. This is roaring lion out of Granny Franny, who's a mare that we actually has already produced a Group 1 winner by Kitten's Joy. She's quite an old mare now. We bought her off Ted Vout, who was selling her for the Ramses, who bred and raced Kitten's Joy.
Yeah.
And she's a superb mare. Actually, very, very like the horse at the same stage.
I'm never going to live down missing.
You're never going to live down the fact you couldn't see.
But this is my age-old problem, which I've been told. I never look at the head. I look ears back.
Okay, well I'll give you one of my secrets.
Okay, go on.
It's outlook. So
Yeah.
when you're looking at a horse, I love outlook, because if you ask Rafe Beckett what stops most of his horses from winning races, it's not lack of ability, it's the fact they don't want to. Okay. And so I always think outlook is absolutely key, and Roaring Lion was a key example, as was Kamiko. They came out and they just walked and they want to do it and they want to please. I hate seeing a horse, for example, that looks behind itself the whole time at you. You want willingness. Ears, big ears, that's why I love that's why I love Zoo Stars. They've got these monstrous ears.
Yeah.
Almost look like a different breed, to be honest.
It would be really interesting, I don't know if we can, to see Roaring Lion next to a Zoo Star and just to highlight the physical differences between them at the early stage. I don't know how possible it is.
We can do that. That's a Zoo Star, the chestnut.
The chestnut in front of us here.
Yeah, he's a colt that belongs to David Howden, who's out of Castle Hill Cassie, who won the listed race over 6 furlongs at Pontefract, and it says that pure speed, and you can see he's got a huge hip and backside.
Just screams power in behind.
Exactly. That's the Roaring Lion out of Wakila, who we were talking about earlier, who's a bit of a scopier look, but probably none's going to be more scopier than this chap, who's He's out of a Galileo mare.
This is a Roaring Lion out of a Galileo mare.
Yeah, he's probably the least attractive colour. He looks. I mean, you'd call him in Pony Club days. You'd call him Strawberry Rain.
Yeah.
Hey, get up. So
but physically, I mean, particularly.
Well, you see how much longer he is.
Yeah.
He's got a huge amount of range and scope and a long walk. He's out of a mare called Lady Dragon, who's produced a couple of quite decent horses for us. But he's definitely a
and
mile
Roaring
and a half
Lion
prospect.
wise, did you obviously when you were planning, you didn't know what was going to happen, but you know, are we going to see a variety Roaring Lion wise, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, the great thing about a miler as a stallion is that you can go to middle distance or you can go back to speed.
Yeah, I'm interested in you referring to him as a miler. Is that you know, is that because you feel he was best over a mile, or how you feel that that's the best way going forward of referring to him? Do you see what I mean? Because of course he won his Group 1s over 10 as well.
He did. He was, well, okay, so he was a mile of 10 furlong horse. I always thought when we watched him race that eventually he was getting quicker and quicker. His cadence, his turn of foot was staggering. I mean, the Irish Champion Stakes was, a race of the ages really, and the manner in which he side down the Ballydoyle horse was something else.
Were you confident he'd make a stallion during his racing career? Was everything there?
There were a number of things you look for. Is that the fact that he was out of a genuine Grade 1 race filly was always a real attraction. The fact that Kitten's Joy was, I think, 7 times champion turf sire in that's a Zooey. In America, the pedigree set. What you hope is to get the pedigree that then turns into a racehorse, because then you've got a better chance of producing a stallion. Mm-hmm. And that's always the gamble. There are lots of Grade 1 winners, Group 1 winners who are hopeless stallion prospects, but he was a really exciting one.
Can we just discuss Kamiko and where are you with him, and are you happy since he came here?
So Kamiko had a great first season. He had a full book. We've supported him massively, and now we'll wait for his first foals next year. I have to say, if I'm completely honest, I would love to have seen him stay in training this year, because I think he would have. I'd love to have seen him running in the Jacques Le Marois races. I think in the Sussex Stakes. I think he would have been very, very exciting.
Were you in a position whereby, because of what had happened to Roaring Lion and because Kamiko had won a Guineas, that there was almost too much? I know you'd have loved to have seen it, but was also part of you happy that you had another stallion?
Oh God! I mean, the relief, I can't tell you. I mean, it was like a huge amount of hope had been extinguished when we lost Roaring Lion. It's taken me 25 years to get Tweenhills to a stage where we were standing a world champion, and to have him come and go in the blink of an eye was absolutely heartrending.
Were you touched by the outpouring?
Do you know, it was, even now, I was racing, all the racing social media lines were buzzing with the fact that it was 2 years to the day the other day since he died, and the amount of traction that got and the following he had was quite something. I think it was a mixture of his sort of cheeky personality and the iron grey colour, and the manner in which he won his races really captured the public. And then I think
the amount he ran as well.
The amount he ran definitely made a big thing. I mean listening to those races again, the Irish Champion Stakes, the Juddmonte International, and then the QE2, which was a race I will never forget as long as I live. Where the fact that he was the star of the season. I mean, that was it. He ended up being Cartier Horse of the Year, and for Cartier Miler of the Year, I think he was. Unfortunately, Enable came out and rather stole his thunder at the end of the year.
So, are these guys, the Roaring Lions, they're just going to be a bit extra special for you? I suppose they have to be, don't they? Commercially.
Absolutely. So you've got a whole selection of Roaring Lions there.
Perfect.
Quite cool, aren't they?
Yeah, really cool. It's fabulous seeing them, and actually, I can just tell what an emotional journey it's going to be, and we wish you all the very best, David.
It's going to be very emotional if they're no good, but I've got confidence.
They will be.
And hope.
Exactly.
Well, that's it from Tweenhills. We'll see you again next week. Bye bye.